Welcome intellectuals to our today's wonder tutorial. We are going to talk about we are going to introduce the first lesson in chemistry 1:1. So on this lesson we are going to focus on accuracy and precision. This is a subtopic from on measurement and units. So the basic introduction, you need to understand what accuracy and precision is. So I'm going to give a basic introduction. Let's say, for example, you have been given to measure the length of maybe this is a table and you have been asked to measure this table, and you have been asked to measure it 3 times, for example. So you are going to try it. They already know to say this table is known, it has a known value. Let me say it has a known value. It has a known value. This known value is what we are going to call true value. Okay, so let's this true value, are going to assume it was 10 meters. Okay, then you are asked to measure this 3 times. Okay, so once you make this measurement, you're going to find out your measurements are not going to be accurate. I'm sure you have tried that. Maybe for the first time you can measure it 9.8, for the second time maybe 8.9, and for the third time maybe 10.1. okay, so because measurements are not accurate, when you do measurements you're going to make some mistakes. So because of that, it's very important for us to understand what accuracy and precision is. Okay, so what is accuracy now? So accuracy is how close repeated measurements are to the what? To the true value. So how close repeated measurement is to the true value. So you say how close repeated measurements are to the true value. So we are going to look at how these measurements are to this true value which we have already known. Then what about precision? Okay, what about precision? Precision is now how close these repeated measurements are to each other. How 9 is close to 8.9 or how 9.8 is close to 10 is what we are actually talking about precision. So we want to understand how close these repeated measurements are to each other. So you say how close repeated measurements are to each other. Okay, this can also, accuracy can also be defined as how the agreement between repeated measurements and the true value. Also, precision can be defined as the agreement between repeated measurements. So that's the other way you can define that. So now the most important thing is you need to understand the steps that we take in finding accuracy and precision. So we just have too many steps. The first step, you are going to find the mean. This is the general step for both accuracy and precision. So the first step, I say step A, you are going to find the mean. Even here you are going to find the mean when you are dealing with precision. So step A is to find the mean. Okay, so how do we find the mean? A mean is just the average of the numbers of the trials that you made. So since you made 3 trials to measure the length of this table, you are going to find out that to find the mean, you are going to add. So you are going to say the sum of trials, the trials you made, over the number of trials. You are going to understand more as we'll be answering questions. So you do the same here, the sum of trials over the number of trials. Okay, so now what is the second step? So the second step, when you are dealing with accuracy, we want to understand how close your measurements are to this true value. So after finding the mean, what you are going to do, you are going to subtract the mean. You say mean minus the true value. You can also do true value minus mean. It's just okay as long as your answer is giving you positive. That's why we are putting the answer in this absolute values, so that our answer which will be having always be positive. So after finding this difference between mean and true value, then it will help us to determine if the person is accurate or not. Okay. Then when it comes to the precision, after finding the mean, precision, we want to understand how close the repeated measurements are to each other. So we are going to find the range. Okay. So the range is just the difference between two extremes. Those are the smallest number and the largest number. So we are going to subtract the largest number. We find the difference between the largest number and the smallest number. So you subtract the smallest number from the largest number. So if this was the data which we are given, we would have subtracted 8.9, which is the smallest, from 10.1. So after understanding that, the key points that you are going to take for all this, so which is going to be point C, we are going to understand that the smaller, okay, the smaller the value, which is either the range, it can be either the range. So I'm going to say the smaller this difference, the smaller the difference, because here we are dealing with the difference. The smaller the difference, or the smaller the range, the higher the precision. So the higher the accuracy and the precision. So you should take note of this point. So if the difference between these two, the mean and the true value, is very small, approximately 0.5, positive or minus 0.5, you are going to say that the person was accurate in measuring this. If it is too large to the point that it is even over 1, then the person is not accurate. Even the same to precision. If the range, after subtracting the smallest and the largest number, you're going to find that if the range is very small, you're going to find that the smaller, the higher the precision. Okay, so let's go and try to understand it through the question. So in this question, we have 3 students that have multiple measurements of the solubility of sodium chloride. Their results are summarized in the table below. The correct value of solubility is 35.9. So you need to take note. This is the correct value. So this is the true. So you take note to say the true value. The true value is 35.9. So these guys were given to make 3 trials. So they made 3 trials. So we need to understand which student's measurement was had high precision and low accuracy, and the student's measurement which has both accurate and precision. So for us to answer the question, we don't need to decide by just looking at the question. We need to answer. We need to do some mathematics, and the steps that I gave here are the same steps that you are going to follow. Okay, so the first thing, we are going to find the mean. As you can remember, I said we are going to find the mean. So I'm going to start and find the mean for Nicole. So how do we find the mean? The mean is going to be found by adding. I said the number of trials, you add the trials. So we had 35.4 plus 36.1 plus 35.7. Then how many trials do we have? 1, 2, 3. We have 3 trials. We divide by 3. So we're going to find the value is actually going to be 35.73. 35.73 grams. We do the same to Nicole, to Matthew. How can we find the mean? So we're going to find the mean. We had 31.8 plus 34.1 plus 41 35.5. We divide by 3 also. We have 3 trials there. We are going to get the answer, which is going to be 35.8. So we have 35.8 grams. Okay. Then we go to Leonard. We find the mean. Just the same method. We say 39.2 plus 39.3 plus 38.9. We divide by 3. Our answer is going to be 39.13 grams. Okay. So after that, now we need to comment. After finding the mean, there you can remember that the second step was now to find the difference between. So we are going to start with finding the accuracy. So let's find the accuracy. So for us to find the accuracy, we need to understand one thing here. The first thing that we need to understand, we need to subtract. Okay, we need to subtract the so we need to subtract. So with accuracy, I said when you are dealing with accuracy, after finding the mean, you find the mean, you need to find the difference. So the difference between the true value and the mean. Okay, so that's what we are going to do next. So we are going to say our true value. You can remember in the question we are given that our true value is 35.9. We have 35.9 there. So the true value, I can write it here. The true value is 35.9 grams. So we need to subtract. So for Nicole, what you are going to do, we are going to say 39, because that is our true value, minus the mean. So we are going to say that the difference is just going to be equal to, we're going to have, so we are going to have 0.7. So we get 0.17. So 0.17 grams. Then we come for Matthews. So even for Matthews we do the same. 35.9 minus 35.8. So we are getting the value of 0.10 grams. Okay, what about to Leonard? So to Leonard we are getting, if we have to subtract 39.13 minus 35.9, we are getting the value of 6. We are getting the value of 3.6. That is the value which we are getting. We're getting 3.23. So 3.23 grams. Okay, so that is the difference that we are going to get. Okay, so now we want to comment on the accuracy of each of the guys. So we have Nico, we have Matthews, and we have Leonard. Okay, what we need to understand here, we need to recall, I said that the smaller the difference, the higher the accuracy. Okay, so I'm going to look at the difference of the three guys. So the difference for Nicole, he only made a mistake to the true measurement of 0.17. This value is very small, hence this guy was at high accuracy. So you say high accuracy. Now when we look at Matthew, he also made a mistake, which is the error there which he made, the difference, which is just 0.1. So he had high accuracy also. But when we talk of Ronald, we are going to find that he made a mistake of 3.23 to the true value. That mistake is very big. We can't tolerate that. So he has low accuracy. You say low accuracy. So because I said that the smaller the value, the higher the accuracy, and vice versa. So after that, now we can go and talk about the precision of this now three guys. How do we find the precision? So when it comes to the precision, you divide, you say you subtract. So you're going to subtract. I said for, let me write it here. Well, let me remind you here. I said for when you are dealing with precision, you don't find the difference. The difference for the mean and the true value is for accuracy. But when you are dealing with precision, you find the range. You subtract the smallest from the largest value among the trials that you have been given. So if you have to look at Nicole here, you're going to find that when you subtract, you're going to 35.4. We're going to look for the smallest value. What first we start for the biggest value is 36.1. So you say 36.1. So let's do here for precision. Let me answer from here for precision. Let's start with Nicole. So the largest value is this, and the smallest value is 35.4, as you can see. So we subtract those. So you say 36.1 minus 35.4. You're going to get the value of 0.7. Okay, of 0.7 grams. This is the length that we are finding. Okay, this is the length. Precision, you find the range, which is the difference between the largest value minus the smallest one. So then you go to Matthews. So with Matthews, what we do here, we subtract. We have the largest value is 41, the smallest is 31. So we say 41.5 minus 31.8. You're going to get the value of 9.7 grams. Then when you go to Leonard, you're going to find that Leonard, the largest value is 39.3. The smallest is 38.9. So you can subtract those values. So you have 39.3 minus 38.9. So you get the value of 0.4 grams. So for us to determine the precision, we do the same. What we want to find there, we need to remember that the smallest the value of the range, the higher the precision. So when you look up for Nicole, we have 0.7. 0.7 is very small, so the mistake was just very small there. So I'm going to say that these values were very close, because precision, we are talking about how close the measurements are. So the difference is very small. So Nicole had high precision. Then Matthews, you can see the difference is very big. We can't tolerate this, it's too big. So as low precision, say low precision. Then when you come to Leonard, the difference is 0.4. It's very small. So this guy also had the high precision. So now let's make a conclusion according to the question that we have been asked. Which students measurement as high precision but low accuracy? Okay, high precision but low accuracy. Let's remember, we said that from the accuracy parts, we said that Nicole and Matthews had high accuracy, only Ronald does low. Okay, so when it comes to accuracy, you can remember that Nicole had high accuracy, even Matthews had high accuracy. Then Leonard had low. Okay, remember that this one had low accuracy. So after having all this information, now we can answer the questions. Which student's measurement had high precision but low accuracy? High precision, high precision. No. Low precision, high accuracy. No, we are looking for high precision but low accuracy. So high precision but low accuracy. So it's Leonard. Okay? High precision, low accuracy. So the answer is Leonard there. Then which student's measurements are both accurate and precise? So we're looking for the one which has both accurate and precise. So you can look the one with high precision and high accuracy. It's Nico. Don't even need to waste much of our time there. So this is how you need to understand about precision and accuracy. So it's just very simple terms you need to understand. Accuracy, we are dealing with how close the measurements are to the true value. Okay, so we want to understand how close the measurements are to the true value. Then, so maybe a quick summary. We say accuracy is how close this measurement is to the true value. Then when we talk of precision, we are talking about how close the measurements are to each other. So how close these measurements are to each other. The general step when you're finding this both, the general step is to find the mean. When it comes to accuracy, you find the difference between the true value and the same mean which you have found here. Then when it comes to precision, you find the range, which is just the difference between the largest value and the smallest. Then you are going to determine who is accurate and precise using the difference which you found here and the range. Remembering the key point to say that the smallest or the smaller, the higher the precision. The higher the precision or accuracy. So if you have the small difference or the small range, that means you have high accuracy or high precision. So that's where we end our today's lesson. So thank you guys for your attention.